Hello, I'm a single woman in my 60s. Since I was young, I always believed in a give and take philosophy. I thought that if I worked hard and showed dedication, others would do the same. This idea carried over into my relationships, where I believed that if I treated others kindly, they would be kind to me in return. Even when I got married, I kept this belief. I thought that if I was considerate to my husband, he would treat me the same way. Today, women aren't expected to make as many sacrifices, but things were different in my time. I was happy to sacrifice for my husband and children, believing that my efforts would lead to future happiness. However, my marriage and family life didn't go as I had hoped. Despite waking up early and working hard for my family, complaints and mistakes were all I got. Instead of appreciation, no one made me live this way. I was just a regular person who married a coworker 4 years older than me. We got married because of societal expectations. At that time, society expected married women to quit their jobs, so I became a full-time housewife after having my daughter. I had no regrets. I thought it was the natural thing to do for a family. Though my life wasn't as glamorous as the ones you see on TV, it felt stable and easy. When my daughter was in 9th grade, tragedy struck. My mother suddenly passed away from a heart attack. While I was grieving her loss, I found out that my husband was having an affair. He found happiness with someone else, became indifferent to me, and eventually asked for a divorce. I tried to avoid divorce, but my husband's behavior became unbearable. Back then, divorce wasn't as accepted in society, and even though my husband was irresponsible and unkind, I didn't want to get divorced. But looking back, I see that I had more to consider. My daughter was affected by the situation. Even though I didn't want a divorce, I found myself in a very unhappy place. One day, during a heated argument about the divorce, my father visited unexpectedly. He saw the stress in our relationship and offered me a place to stay, encouraging me to leave my husband and take my daughter with me. Having just lost his wife and seeing his daughter in an unhappy marriage, my father convinced me that staying in this difficult situation was pointless. His concern made me decide to agree to the divorce. My husband gave me $3,000 in cash, and with my father's help, I found a 2-bedroom townhouse for me and my daughter to start fresh. I knew I would have to work hard to support us. I also worried about what others would think of me as a divorced woman with a daughter, especially since my daughter was going through her teenage years. During this tough time, my daughter expressed the typical feelings of a teenager, upset about the impact of the divorce on her life. Even though I felt hurt, I knew I couldn't focus on that forever. I was determined to take care of my daughter and started looking for stable work to support us. Being an older divorced woman with a child made it hard to find a job, but I didn't give up. I took on several part-time and night jobs, and even did freelance work at home whenever I could. As time went on, my daughter entered her senior year of high school. Despite our financial struggles, she did well in school and found ways to succeed. Wanting to ensure a good future for her, I got a job at a 24-hour restaurant, working 12-hour shifts. I saved most of my earnings to put toward her college tuition, even though I faced judgment and gossip, especially from some married men who saw me as an easy target. I kept going for my daughter's sake. The sacrifices were many, but my goal was to give her the opportunities one didn't have. As she grew older, I hoped she would understand the challenges I faced raising her and working hard to provide for us. Looking back, I realized that having a daughter made everything harder, but also more meaningful. She became my reason to keep going and gave me the strength to keep pushing through life's struggles. I held on to the hope that someday, my daughter and I would look back on all we went through and be proud of our strength. A year later, my daughter's hard work paid off. She passed the entrance exams and was accepted into Harvard University, a moment of great joy that made all the struggles worth it. As she began her college journey, I felt a mix of pride and emptiness. I had managed to provide for her education and living expenses, but I missed having her around every day. We stayed in touch through phone calls, and in the first few months of her independence, our bond grew stronger. Her newfound affection and connection brought me comfort, and I cherished our changing relationship. Despite everything, my daughter graduated from college without any financial problems, fulfilling a dream we had worked so hard to make come true. I hoped that one day, we would live together again. I was surprised when my daughter got a job at a defense corporation and decided to live on her own. To support her, I took out a bank loan and helped with the down payment for a condo near her workplace. While I grew older and became more low-key in my appearance, my daughter flourished as a stylish career woman. Watching her succeed brought me great joy, and it made me feel that all my sacrifices were worth it. I felt content in her achievements. understanding the saying that you forget hunger when you experience joy. However, after supporting her financially through college, a new challenge arose: the costs of her wedding. People questioned why I was still struggling when she was financially independent, but I was determined to help with the wedding expenses, to avoid any judgment from her future in-laws. I believed that supporting her happiness would bring joy to both of us, and it kept me going. As my daughter dated, I noticed a growing distance between us. At first, I was hurt, but I realized that her adult life and relationships had become her main focus. I patiently waited for her to mature and come back to me, understanding that priorities change as you grow older. However, on her 27th birthday, I was looking forward to celebrating with her, but she made it clear she had plans with someone named Michael. She brushed off any preparations for a celebration. While she might have meant that I shouldn't make a big fuss, I couldn't help but feel hurt. It was her birthday, a day that meant so much to me because it was the day she was born. Her indifference stung deeply, and I struggled to understand why she seemed to think spending money on her birth was a waste, especially given our tight budget. Despite my hurt feelings, I knew she was my only daughter, and I wanted to see her on her birthday. I decided to take a day off work and visit her at her workplace, paying extra attention to my appearance. But when I got there, I had an unexpected and emotionally charged encounter. I saw my ex-husband with his mistress in the company lobby, people I never wanted to see again. I was shocked and confused about how he found out I was there. I quickly called my daughter, but she abruptly hung up, saying she was in a meeting. Feeling lost, I turned to leave, only to hear my daughter happily greet and hug her father with a big smile. Her boyfriend seemed familiar with my ex-husband and his wife, which added to my anger. In that moment, I felt completely betrayed, as if the world was against me. I left in a rush, feeling drained and lost. That day, I wanted to confront my daughter and ex-husband, but I couldn't bring myself to. I didn't have the courage to call her. Then, unexpectedly, my daughter came home one day, telling me she was getting married and handed me an invitation. I was shocked when I saw the names on the card. Although she was my daughter, I felt a strong urge to throw her out of the house. I couldn't understand why she would invite me this way. I confronted her, telling her how hurt I was to be treated like a guest at her wedding, reminding her that I was her mother. My daughter apologized, saying she felt she had no choice. Although she wanted to marry Michael, his parents criticized her for every detail about the wedding. I was left with mixed emotions, torn between feeling hurt and wanting to understand my daughter's point of view. When my daughter told me about her concerns regarding my past and being a single mother, it really hurt. She explained that if her boyfriend's family knew the truth about me, they might not approve of her marrying him. I couldn't hold back my frustration and reminded her of all the sacrifices I made to raise her, work at a restaurant, and pay for her education. But her response shocked me. She said the past didn't matter and that her father and his new partner had already met her future in-laws. She wanted a comfortable life and cared more about the present than the struggles we faced before. For the first time, I spoke harshly to her, expressing my disappointment in her attitude. In response, she suggested that if I wanted to remove her from my life, I should pay back the money I spent raising her. This led to a heated argument, and she left, saying we were now strangers. I felt devastated and questioned why I had saved money for her wedding. Looking at the invitation with another name where mine should have been, I felt deep sadness. 3 years later, I learned that my father, who had lived alone to avoid burdening me, had fallen ill. Sadly, I didn't know about it until after he passed away, and I felt like a poor daughter. A few months later, I inherited his small condo, a bittersweet reminder of family struggles. Realizing I had money saved for my daughter's wedding, I decided to start living for myself. Even if it was late in life, I began to think that maybe dedicating myself only to my daughter and making sacrifices for her wasn't the most fulfilling path. I wanted to focus on my own desires before it was too late. A real estate broker from the restaurant I worked at encouraged me to pursue what I really wanted. I started studying real estate and auction bidding. With some savings and money from selling my father's condo, I took a chance and became a building owner overnight. 6 months later, after a mountain climbing trip, I moved into the top floor of the building, now my new home. Then one day, I received an unexpected visitor, my daughter, pregnant and holding a toddler. She was tearful and distressed, explaining that her husband had been abusive, and she needed refuge. Despite everything, I couldn't turn my back on her. She told me she knew about my success in real estate and wanted my help, mentioning she had a right to some of the money I had saved for her wedding and education. I was torn between anger and compassion. I confronted her, reminding her that I had saved money for her education and wedding, and she had told me to get out of her life. I felt hurt and betrayed, but I also saw her vulnerability and knew I couldn't turn her away. In the heat of our argument, I took all the money I had in my wallet and threw it at her. I told her that if she was going to act like this, she could take the money, but never come back to my house. I was firm in my decision to prioritize my own life, even though it was painful. I couldn't accept her back because she was still as selfish as before. I felt sorry for my innocent granddaughter, who was caught in the middle of everything. After that, my daughter never came to see me again. I knew what kind of daughter she was. Even if she had repented for her past actions and begged for my forgiveness, pretending to be reluctant, I would have found ways to punish her husband for what he had done, but I was so disappointed. If she chose to erase me from her life to marry him, she should have lived happily. Why did both my husband and daughter turn out this way? Even though I lived a tough life, I now see that the only person living the life I want is me. So, if anyone is living their life for others, like I did, I want to say this for sure: no matter how strong your relationship with someone else is, don't forget to live for yourself.